Today we're going to talk about the danger of Trump's latest pick to lead the FBI and what it says more broadly about his priorities in his administration. And I've got two interviews this week. I interview Pod Save America's Tommy Vitor to discuss the extent to which Democrats are required to retool. And I'm joined by Max Steyer from the Partnership for Public Service to discuss whether Trump could actually be successful at enacting the most dangerous element of Project 2025, firing career civil servants and replacing them with loyalists. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're watching No Lie. You know by now that Donald Trump has nominated Kash Patel to lead the FBI. To give you an idea of who Kash Patel is, I'm actually going to defer to Bill Barr's words here from his book. The president then started advancing the idea of appointing Kash Patel as deputy FBI director. Patel, who is completing a stint as deputy to acting director of national intelligence Rick Grenell, had been a staffer to Congressman Devin Nunes and had served briefly on the NSC staff at the White House under Trump. I categorically opposed making Patel deputy FBI director. I told Mark Meadows it would happen, quote, over my dead body. Someone with no background as an agent would never be able to command the respect necessary to run the day-to-day operations of the Bureau. Furthermore, Patel had virtually no experience that would qualify him to serve at the highest level of the world's preeminent law enforcement agency. The Bureau already had an exceptionally able deputy, David Bowditch, in whom I had total confidence. He was a strong leader with high integrity. He was indispensable as far as I was concerned. The very idea of moving Patel into a role like this showed a shocking detachment from reality. That was Bill Barr. That was Trump's hand-picked attorney general, the same guy who straight up lied about the Mueller report in an effort to protect Trump from what the report actually said. So for that guy to say that Kash Patel should lead the FBI over his dead body probably gives you a pretty decent indication as to why he is so unqualified for this position. And if Bill Barr's warnings don't move you, listen to Kash Patel's own words. Here he is during an interview with Steve Bannon from last year before he was nominated FBI director.
Do you feel confident that you will be able to deliver the goods, that we can have serious prosecutions and accountability? And I want the Morning Joe producers that watch us and all the producers that watch us, this is just not rhetoric. We're absolutely dead serious. We're not. You cannot have a constitutional republic and allow what these deep staters have done to the country. The deep state, the administrative state, the fourth branch of government never mentioned in the Constitution, is going to be taken apart brick by brick. And the people that did these evil deeds will be held accountable and prosecuted, criminal prosecutions. Kash, I know you're probably going to be head of the CIA, but do you believe that you can deliver the goods on this in a pretty short order the first couple of months so we can get rolling on prosecutions?
Yes, we got the bench for it, Bannon, and you know those guys. I'm not going to go out there and say their names right now so the radical left-wing media can terrorize them. But, excuse me, the one thing we learned in the Trump administration the first go-around is we got to put in all-America patriots top to bottom. And we got them for law enforcement. We got them for intel collection. We got them for offensive operations. We got them for DOD, CIA, everywhere. And the one thing we will do that they never will do is we will follow the facts and the law and go to courts of law and correct these justices and lawyers who have been prosecuting these cases based on politics and actually issuing them as lawfare. We will go out and find the conspirators, not just in government, but in the media. Yes, we're going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens, who helped Joe Biden rig presidential elections. We're going to come after you. Whether it's criminally or civilly, we'll figure that out. But yeah, we're putting you all on notice. And Steve, this is why they hate us. This is why we're tyrannical. This is why we're dictators.
That he'll go after the media for the apparent crime of helping Joe Biden rig the presidential election? In other words, this is the guy up for FBI director who is claiming that Joe Biden lost in 2020, which is an outright lie and conspiracy theory, and he's willing to criminally prosecute anyone, from lawyers to members of the media, who correctly reported on or litigated in favor of Joe Biden. This is out-and-out weaponization of government. This is what an actual witch hunt looks like. Claiming that Donald Trump won in 2020 and prosecuting those who acknowledged objective reality. If this doesn't scare you about Trump's incoming administration, I don't know what will. But what's telling here is that while Trump's picks for certain roles are pretty uncontroversial, Marco Rubio as Secretary of State, Susie Wiles as Chief of Staff, the roles where he's swinging for the fences all have a very obvious through line here. Matt Gaetz and then Pam Bondi as Attorney General, Kash Patel at FBI, his personal lawyer Todd Blanche as Deputy Attorney General. It's the positions where he needs loyalists to be able to wield the government as a cudgel against his enemies that he's actually swinging for the fences. That's where he's spending all of his political capital. Marco Rubio at State goes to show that Trump does not care what happens in that role. What he's focused on is being able to enact his retribution tour, and the way he does that is with the very people who he's nominated to lead those positions. Not only will there be no pushback from those people, but they are just as eager as he is to weaponize the government. So look, I've been pretty clear about what we should do in terms of Democrats resisting this administration. I've been pretty clear that we have limited political capital and that if we treat everything like a five-alarm fire, then nothing feels like a five-alarm fire. But this is a fire worth focusing on. This is above Pam Bondi. This is above Tulsi Gabbard, above Pete Hegseth, insofar as we're ranking them or we get only one or two bites at the apple. If there's anything to raise hell over, it is Kash Patel. That should be our focus in a political environment where we still have the ability to drive the narrative if someone is particularly dangerous. Matt Gaetz' nomination didn't survive to confirmation hearings for a reason, likely because he wants to be governor of Florida and that he knew the ethics report would eventually come out in the confirmation hearings, and he didn't want that. But let's be clear, it was the Democrats who forced this issue, and we should do the exact same thing here. This is also why it's important not to tune out here. And if you're anything like me, you're probably exhausted to some degree and discouraged to some degree. But this is a moment where it is necessary to pay attention and sound the alarms. This is why it's so necessary not to check out, because the Trump White House will be bad, but it will be so much worse if there's nothing moderating Donald Trump's worst impulses. We saw it work with Matt Gaetz, and we should ensure that it works again here. I know that it may not feel like it, but we've still got power, we've still got influence, and this is the moment where we need to use it. Coming up next are previews of my interviews with Tommy Vitor and Max Stier, but first a quick note, my once-weekly podcast, No Lie, which is what you're watching right now, is officially part of the Crooked Media Network. I'm really excited about that. Pod Save America has always been a huge inspiration for me, and I'm grateful to be part of that team. With my podcast joining their network, the ads that play on my audio episodes of No Lie are also going to play here. This is the first time that ads have ever appeared on my channel, and it'll happen on just one video per week, just my video podcast every Sunday. Again, the episodes of No Lie. So to that end, here's a quick word from some sponsors and then previews of my interviews. No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen is brought to you by ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol. So let's be honest, after a night with drinks, I do not bounce back the next day like I used to. I know a lot of people are with me here. I have a choice to make. I can either have a great night or a great next day, but usually not both. But then I found Pre-Alcohol. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-Alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make Pre-Alcohol your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. And look, initially I was on the fence about all of this because I felt like nothing could salvage my days after. But I was actually in DC for the State of the Union this past year, the first time I tried it. Probably the last time I go to the State of the Union for a while. And my next day, I was literally fine. Give this thing a shot. Trust me, it is the real deal. And with the holiday season upon us, I know I'm going to be consuming a bit more alcohol than usual. With Pre-Alcohol, I can stay on track and not let the season throw me off course. Go to zbiotics.com/lie to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use LIE at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/lie and use the code LIE at checkout for 15% off. No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen is brought to you by Lumen. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath, and on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs and gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, workouts, sleep, and even stress management. All you have to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. Then Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for the day based on your measurements. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals, so you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. And Lumen will give you tips to keep on top of your health game. And look, I feel like I can speak on this with some authority because prior to getting into politics, I was a certified personal trainer for about a decade. Your metabolism is your body's engine. It is how your body turns the food you eat into the fuel that keeps you going. Your metabolic health is everything, but there is no one rule that covers everybody. That's why it's so important to know how your metabolism works, and Lumen will give you recommendations to improve it. So if you want to stay on track with your health this holiday season, go to lumen.me/lie to get 15% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/lie for 15% off your purchase. Lumen makes a great gift too. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. you guys at Pod Save America had an interview. I believe it was Favreau who actually conducted the interview with Stephanie Valencia, who deals with Latino voters. And she spoke about how for $350,000, Republicans were able to buy up one of the last remaining neutral radio stations in South Florida. And meanwhile, Democrats set like millions and millions and millions of dollars on fire. This election cycle, we had nearly $1 billion that was spent on ads that would go in one ear and out the other. And so how do you think that Democrats should focus on the media environment at a moment like right now, as opposed to just waiting for, like August or September of an election year to start remembering that the media actually plays a big role in this thing?
Yeah, I think we have to realize we have a brand problem. People don't like the Democratic Party. They don't think it's cool. They don't think it fights for them. It's not a party they want to be a part of. And right now, people feel the opposite about Trump. You see like athletes doing the Trump dance at games. He's sort of like seen as being culturally cool. People are excited about him, and we need to fix that. And I think part of it is going to be figuring out how to talk to people and reach them early and often. Another part of it will be, I think in Washington, people worry too much about inputs and not outputs. Like they spend 2 weeks writing and editing the speech and then 2 minutes thinking about who it gets to,
right,
or who hears the speech. And so, you can do daytime, MSNBC hits all you want, and I think that's great. But there's like a swath of voters that are never consuming political content.
A swath of voters. If you're talking to the MSNBC crowd, you're basically talking to the same couple 100,000 people. Yeah. That's it. Like, forget about swath of voters. We're missing the vast majority of Americans out there.
Yeah, and a lot of them don't vote at all. They don't care, and so you have to get out of your comfort zone and go find people where they're at. Way too much has been said about like Joe Rogan, whether you go on his show or not. I think the answer is obvious. You go on that show, you go on Barstool Sports, you go on all these networks, if they'll have you on, that are sort of politically adjacent, that talk about culture and sports and Hollywood and music, and try to introduce yourselves to those people.
And so I'm curious because we have a brand problem in terms of being able to reach out to working class Americans and middle class Americans right now, who just don't trust the Democrats to be able to do that. And so when you have a party like today's Democratic Party, like Joe Biden's Democratic Party in the first 2 years of his term, where they passed so much. From American Rescue Plan, Inflation Reduction Act, PACT Act, CHIPS Act, added 16 million jobs, brought the unemployment rate down. They did all of the things, and they did them with a focus on bolstering and protecting the middle class. Automatic airline refunds for cancellations, eliminating junk fees, $35 insulin and inhalers. All that stuff is meant to help a certain segment of the population, not the ultra wealthy, as opposed to what Trump did in his first term, which was just use his political capital for a tax cut for millionaires and billionaires. When you have a party that largely is walking the walk and still it doesn't matter, right? Then how do you move forward in a way that basically says, like, do we have to do more of the stuff that people don't seem to recognize in the first place?
I think a lot of this was luck and timing. Like, Donald Trump got handed an economy that was revved up and going from Barack Obama. Gas was cheap, and that propelled him for 3 years until the pandemic hit. And then Joe Biden took over in a deep, deep hole and had to climb out of it after the pandemic and all the job loss, et cetera. So that's part of it, was just like lucky or unlucky.
Yeah.
But the other piece is, yes, we did some big things, passed a highway bill, the CHIPS Act, the IRA, but a lot of that money wasn't spent. Like, most people weren't feeling that money in any way in their own lives. Like, yes, capping the price of insulin was a big deal for a lot of people, but it's a discrete thing for a subset of the population, whereas everybody was mad about the cost of gas.
Right.
And I think it's going to be, there's not ever going to be a quick fix to solving that problem, but I think at times we sounded completely tone deaf about how we talked about it. Remember the big fight over whether inflation was transitory or here to stay? How stupid does that seem in hindsight?
Something that I've been especially worried about and sounded the alarms about in the lead up to this election was the prospect of Trump enacting Schedule F, which is his plan to change all of the career civil servants in the federal government into a political appointee designation. So would he be able to do this as easily as I think he's planning on doing it, as easily as Project 2025 had anticipated it would be for him to do that?
So, Brian, you're 100% right to be concerned about this. I think that if you pull out for a second, the key issue here is President Trump wants to convert our current system, which is a government that's there for the public and for the people, into a government that is the spoil system, one that serves the winner of the election and not the broader public interest. And Schedule F, as you just described, is an important piece of that. So President-elect has already stated that he wants to use government authorities to go after his personal enemies. He's choosing people to run agencies on the basis of their loyalty to him, not to their competence and character. And the civil service is the last remaining bastion of representation for that rule of law and the public interest. And Schedule F was something that he tried in the first term to implement. The very end of his first term, ran out of time, but that would have done just what you said, which is convert many, many thousands of career apolitical experts into yet more political appointees. I think that he will have difficulty getting to answer your direct question in implementing Schedule F very quickly, because the Biden team has put in place a regulation that they would have to undo to make that happen. But I think the more important issue is that he can pursue that same goal of upending the career professional civil service through a lot of other means. And we need to be alert to not just Schedule F, but all kinds of other things, like just terrible management that might drive away the experts that we want in our government and enable more politicization, more cronyism, and worse government.
Right. People just seeing that there are unqualified, incompetent people at the top of each department and basically self-selecting out by virtue of not wanting to work under a Pam Bondi, under a Pete Hegseth, under an RFK Jr., for example. I want to go back to the regulation that you had spoken about before, the fact that Biden had put forward a regulation that would presumably prevent this type of thing from happening. You would imagine if Trump was actually serious about moving forward with turning the career civil servant sector into political appointees, that his team would just be committed to overturning this regulation, and that would be basically a very small obstacle for him to have to overcome. Would you agree with that? Is that actually going to pose some type of a serious barrier for him?
So I think it's always dangerous to say never, but government process actually matters, and when you don't understand government process and you work to use that government process to achieve your ends, you often don't get very far. And the truth is that it takes a lot of time to change a regulation that exists to do it right so that you can actually avoid successful court challenge. Now, it may very well be that the Trump team will simply bulldoze through, not care about what the courts might say or litigation. But the reality is that it could take 6 months or a year to do Schedule F. Again, you said it exactly right, though, and that is you don't have to have Schedule F to have the impact of Schedule F. If you chase away the good talent, and it's worth stepping back and making sure we understand who these people are. They're the air traffic controllers, they're the food inspectors, they're the 70% of the workforce that is involved in national security, keeping us safe. A third of them are veterans. These are people who overall headcount, I should also add, is the same size today in the federal government as it was in the 1960s. So these are people that are serving America. They deserve better. The OMB intended nominee has been taped and quoted as saying that he would like to traumatize the federal workforce so that they don't want to come to work. You do have to worry about how federal employees are being treated, because that can lead to effectively the same thing as Schedule F. Great talent leaving, Americans getting hurt because they don't have the best civil servants looking out for them.
To watch the full interviews with Tommy Vitor and Max Dyer, click the thumbnails right here on the screen or check out the interviews playlist on my YouTube channel. You can also listen to this episode as the audio version by clicking on this screen, and of course, to see more of my content, the subscribe button's on the screen as well.